Yes, I'm getting some thumbs up. Okay, great. So yes, thanks for the introduction, Joanna. So yeah, I'm Kirsten. I'm in my second year of my PhD research in education, looking at creative methods for teaching geography, specifically through creative writing in schools. And yeah, in my first year, I faced one particular thing that I didn't want to do that ended up being good for me. And I thought this story might be useful to some of you, because I'm sure there's going to be something or other that you don't want to do at some point in the PhD. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of share my story with you, hopefully get something out of it. And I just wanted to start off by telling you a little bit more about me. You already know about my background and my research area, but I think the key thing that you really need to know about me for the purposes of this presentation is that I am a bit of a control freak, or at least we could say a control enthusiast. And this is relevant to my PhD because, as is quite common in the arts, humanities and social sciences, my PhD project was student-led. So that means that I chose my own title. I contacted my own supervisors, the people that I wanted to work with. I chose my own methods. I wrote my own proposal. So very much the idea that I got to do, you know, the thing that I was interested in the way that I wanted to do it, with the people that I wanted to do it with, that was really appealing to me. This idea that everything was, in a sense, under my control. But in my first year, there was one big thing that I didn't choose, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. That looks like this. So this is the thing that I didn't want to do in my first year. It might be recognizable to some of you, but perhaps not everyone. It certainly wasn't to me when I first started doing it. This is a screenshot from a program called R, which is a statistical analysis software. And in my first year, I had to get to grips with this as part of a training course in quantitative methods. And this is something that I very much did not choose to do. In fact, I actually chose not to do it as part of my master's course. So I was supposed to do quantitative analysis training as part of my master's, but I made a case that it wasn't relevant to me as a creative, qualitative researcher. So I opted out of that and I replaced it with an independent study in French literature, which is something that I was much more interested in and considered to be much more relevant. But as things worked out, I ended up having my PhD funded by the ESRC, which is the Economic and Social Research Council, and they just have a requirement for all of their funded PhD candidates that they have to have training in both qualitative and quantitative methods. So I already had the qualitative aspect from my master's, but this meant that I was required to undertake this training as part of my first year for the PhD. But I didn't want to do it, and in fact I was really kind of dreading it. I thought it would quite frankly be a bit of a waste of my time. I didn't think I was ever going to use it, and in some ways I was a bit resentful of having to do it. I thought, can't believe that this is where I ended up getting my funding from, and if only I got it from somewhere else I wouldn't have to do this. But actually, in a huge surprise to me, it was one of the most rewarding parts of my first year and something that I've ended up taking forward in my own research. And there were some kind of strategies that I used to get through it that I wanted to kind of share it with you. So I've got some tips for how to get through the things you don't want to do. And I want to share those with you in the form of 4 inspirational quotes that I've taken off of quotefancy.com. So here's the first one. Every problem is an opportunity in disguise. And this was really about changing my mindset and how I approached this challenge, this thing that I had to do. So when I started out, as I said, I was quite resentful of having to do this. And I found other people in the social sciences that felt the same way, that were in the same position, and we got together and had a big moan, and I moaned to all my friends and family about it. And while that was, you know, cathartic and it was good to explain how I was actually feeling, I realized that it wasn't a very helpful way of thinking about things. So I tried to reframe it in my mind as an opportunity. I saw this as a chance to develop new skills, maybe even skills that might be attractive to a future employer potentially. And also just a chance to engage with new approaches to social science. So as I said, I'm more interested in creative and qualitative methods, or at least I had been. And that really conditioned the type of literature that I engaged with as well. So I was very used to reading qualitatively focused studies. So I thought, well, at least, I'll get to learn something new here, and maybe familiarize myself with something a bit different to what I'm used to. But at the same time, I was very aware that engagement with these new approaches doesn't have to mean endorsement of these new approaches. And that takes me to my second point, which is know thyself, know thy enemy. So for me, my whole project is about the value of creative approaches, and that meant that I was being, in a sense, quite critical of other ways of doing things that were more quantitative. But if I'm being honest with myself, I didn't really understand all that well what it was that I was criticizing, because I hadn't engaged with it in any kind of deep level. I'd done a little bit at undergraduate, but I didn't take it any further than that. So this, if nothing else, was a chance to get some evidence to support those criticisms. So, that's what I told myself. And that was helpful. I was able to engage critically with these approaches and understand them a bit better. I think there's another quote that kind of goes along with this, which is to know the enemy, you have to become the enemy. And that's what I did through this course. I followed the same steps, learned the background, learned the software, worked out how it worked in practice and how it might apply to an area that I was interested in. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, I really did end up becoming the enemy in that as a result of taking this course and finding out all of this new information and these new approaches, I actually did decide to incorporate a quantitative element into my own PhD research, which is something that I never in a million years would have imagined when I first started out. But this was new to me and it was hard. So this is my third quote here. These things will be hard to do, but you can do hard things. That is very important to keep in mind. I think I got this advice from Joanna as part of my own induction when I started, and it stuck with me. Because in the process of doing this, honestly, there were tears. There was a lot of times where I felt frustrated, where I felt stupid, like I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't understand it. But then when I managed to get through it and I applied myself and I actually ended up doing better than I thought I would in the course, I got a huge confidence boost from doing that. And the kind of confidence that you get from doing things that you find difficult, that are out of your comfort zone, is so much bigger than the kind of confidence you get from doing well in things that you're already comfortable with. And it was very much one for the CV, both in terms of the skills that I got out of this, and the fact I could say I'm familiar with quantitative methods, but also in terms of it's such a common kind of interview question or things that you can talk about in a cover letter to describe a time when you overcame a challenging situation and what you did to get through that. And that was very much what happened for me. But I think most of all, the key to overcoming this challenge, in my case, was to share it with others. And this is my final inspirational quote: a problem shared is a problem solved. You might have heard a problem shared is a problem halved, which is already, halfway there. But yeah, I very quickly realized that this was something I literally couldn't do on my own. So I really had to seek advice and work with other people to get through it. So my first port of call for that was my tutor for this training course, members of academic staff, and I took advantage of having the opportunity to ask lots and lots of questions to the person who's there to guide me through it. I also approached student learning development. They have a statistics advisor, which was helpful when I was doing the kind of final project and I had to think about working a bit more independently. But most importantly, I got a lot of support from peers, so other students who were doing the course at the same time as me. We had a really mixed group in this course in terms of levels of experience working with quantitative analysis, working with command line interfaces like R, and we all really helped each other out to get through the coursework. To do that, we set up WhatsApp groups, we set up group study sessions, and that was incredibly valuable, not just in terms of what I learned from that, but also just in terms of, feeling supported generally, and feeling like part of a community, which was nice when you can quite often be working on your own as a PhD researcher. So to sum up, why these things that you don't want to do might actually be good for you in the end. The first thing is it's important to remember that you're not always going to be in control of everything in your PhD, and actually that's okay. It's important, I think, to be open to being led in different directions during your PhD journey. It will change throughout the years, whether that's from something you do through training like me, whether it's something that you just hear in a seminar that takes you, piques your interest and takes you down another path. Or of course, when things go wrong and they don't go to plan and you need to rethink. This kind of open-mindedness and flexibility is a really useful mindset to have for your research. Second thing is that challenges are chances. They're chances for personal development, chances to learn more things and maybe learn more about yourself. So if you are facing something that you really don't want to do, try to think about what you can gain from that situation, because it's often quite a lot. And finally, just to remember that needing help is actually a really good place to be, because needing help helps you to make connections. That kind of forces you to reach out to those around you. So I would certainly recommend doing that, whether it is academic staff, whether it's professional services or support staff, or to your fellow students as well. And I think that's everything I wanted to talk about today. So thank you for listening. I hope it helps when you face some difficulties in your own journey, and I'm happy to take any questions at the end. Thank you.